I used to think that owning dozens of rental properties was the ultimate definition of financial freedom, but last Tuesday, I signed the papers to sell every single one of them. The dream of passive income quickly became a high-stakes management nightmare. Between unexpected $10,000 roof repairs, midnight calls about leaking pipes, and the constant legal overhead, I realized I was not an investor anymore. I was a full-time property manager living in a state of perpetual stress, trading my mental health for a monthly check. Come closer. Yes, pull up a chair right here by the window. The light is fading outside, and when you get to my age, you notice the fading light a lot more than you used to. People look at an old man like me, with all the wrinkles and the slow walk, and they think they know what I regret. They assume I regret not traveling to more exotic places, or maybe not saying I love you enough to the people who mattered. And those things are true, yes. We all wish we had loved better. But there is another kind of regret that haunts the quiet halls of hospitals and nursing homes. A silent, heavy regret that nobody likes to talk about in polite conversation. I'm talking about financial regrets. But not the kind you think. I spent over 50 years working in and around the financial markets. I've watched millions of dollars change hands in the blink of an eye. I've been on the trading floor. I've seen the absolute euphoria of raging bull markets that made ordinary men feel like invincible gods, and I've witnessed the devastating, crushing despair of bear markets that brought those same proud men to their knees in weeping prayer. When you are lying in a bed, waiting for the final bell to ring, the numbers on a brokerage screen don't matter anymore. But the choices you made because of those numbers? The fear, the unchecked greed, the life you missed out on while you were staring at a chart. Those echo in eternity. Today, I want to share with you the 7 financial regrets of the dying. These are the brutal truths the markets don't teach you, the lessons buried under the endless noise of the ticker tape. Listen closely, because I paid a very high price to learn them, and I do not want you to pay the same. Regret number 1, waiting for the perfect time to enter the market. I remember the autumn of 1987 perfectly. Black Monday, October 19th. The Dow dropped 22.6% in a single day. The fear in the office was thick enough to choke on. The phones were ringing off the hook, screens bleeding red. I had a dear friend, let's call him Thomas. Thomas was terrified. He pulled every single penny he had out of the market. He told me, I'll wait until the dust settles. I'll wait until it feels safe again. But here is the cold truth about the financial markets and about life itself: it is never entirely safe. The dust never truly settles. There is always a crisis, a political war, an economic bubble, a new fear on the horizon. Thomas waited through the recovery of the 1990s. He waited on the sidelines through the greatest wealth-building bull run in modern history, always convinced another devastating crash was just around the corner. He died with his money sitting in a low-yield savings account, having lost more purchasing power to inflation than he ever would have lost in a market correction. He didn't just miss out on building wealth, he lived his entire adult life in a state of financial anxiety, paralyzed by the illusion of a perfect moment that never came. The perfect time to invest is a myth. The right time is simply when you have the courage to begin and the patience to stay. Regret number 2. Trading irreplaceable time for a fluctuating number. In the late 1990s, the dot-com bubble was inflating to astronomical levels. Everyone was getting impossibly rich. People were quitting their day jobs to day trade tech stocks that had no earnings and no business models. I fell into the trap. I had a screen in my office, a screen in my living room, and eventually a pager that buzzed constantly with stock alerts. I was making more money than I had ever dreamed of. But let me tell you what I lost in the process. I missed my daughter's piano recitals. I missed quiet, beautiful Sunday mornings with my wife because I was frantically reading financial reports, terrified of missing the next big trade. When the bubble burst in the spring of 2000, a massive amount of that paper wealth evaporated. Poof! Gone like smoke in the wind. But the tragedy wasn't the lost money. The real tragedy was the lost time. I traded precious hours with my children, hours that I can never, ever buy back at any price for numbers on a screen that ultimately went to zero. Time is the only currency that truly matters in this universe. You can always make another dollar, but you cannot manufacture another minute. Do not let the relentless pursuit of the market rob you of the present moment. Regret number 3, following the herd into the slaughterhouse. Human beings are terrified of standing alone. In 2008, during the great financial crisis, I watched people abandon all logic. I watched them buy houses they couldn't afford because their neighbors were doing it. I watched them pour their life savings into complex mortgage-backed securities because the pundits on television confidently told them to. They abandoned their own personal financial plans just to feel the warm safety of the crowd. But the herd is usually marching blindly toward a cliff. When liquidity dried up and the market collapsed, the herd stampeded over the edge together. I sat by the bedside of a man who lost his entire retirement because he couldn't bear the thought of missing out on what everyone else was doing. Fear of missing out, FOMO, is a toxic, destructive emotion. It strips you of your reasoning and your discipline. True financial wisdom requires the quiet, stoic courage to stand alone, to stick to your own boring, steady, long-term plan while everyone else is dancing at the carnival. The carnival always leaves town, and it always leaves a terrible mess behind. Regret number 4, letting paper losses define your self-worth. If you invest long enough, there will be times when the market crashes. Your portfolio will bleed. I've been there. I remember feeling a physical weight on my chest, a sickening dread in the pit of my stomach, as I watched my net worth plummet during the Great Recession. But I also remember the men who let the red ink stain their very souls. They tied their identity, their core value as husbands and fathers, to the balance in their brokerage accounts. When the market crashed, they felt they had failed as human beings. Some of them never recovered, emotionally or physically. The stress ate them alive. Listen to me very carefully. You are not your portfolio. A drop in the stock market is just a temporary fluctuation of capital, not a permanent fluctuation of your character. If you let panic selling take your peace of mind, you have lost something far more valuable than money. Markets historically recover. But a human spirit broken by financial despair is much harder to heal. Keep your identity entirely separate from your investments. Regret number 5, failing to invest in the ultimate asset, yourself. In the financial world, we spend countless hours analyzing companies, dissecting balance sheets, and trying to predict macroeconomic trends. We desperately look for the best stock, the best real estate deal, the best bond yield. But the dying look back and realize they completely neglected the most productive, reliable asset they ever had, their own minds and bodies. I spent thousands of dollars on expensive investment newsletters and wealth advisors, but for years I neglected my physical health and my own continued education. The markets will always be volatile. The economy will shift, old industries will die, and new technologies will be born. The only true hedge against all of this worldly uncertainty is your own ability to adapt, to learn new skills, to grow, and to stay healthy enough to actually enjoy the fruits of your labor. A sharp, educated mind and a healthy, strong body will yield a much higher dividend than any stock on the S&P 500. Don't be so incredibly busy investing in the world that you forget to invest in the mirror. Regret number 6, hoarding instead of harvesting. This is a quiet, tragic regret that I see far too often. I have known men who played the market brilliantly. They saved aggressively, they invested wisely, they compounded their wealth for decades. They built massive, impenetrable financial fortresses. But they completely forgot what the money was actually for. Money is not a high score in an arcade game. It is a utility. It is a tool designed to facilitate a life of meaning, security, and generosity. These men died like mythical dragons sitting fiercely on a pile of gold, never having spent it to travel the world, never having used it to help a struggling family member, never having truly enjoyed the profound security they sacrificed so much to build. They were so deeply conditioned to accumulate that they never learned how to distribute. They were terrified of running out of money, so instead, they ran out of life. Do not build a massive fortune just to leave it entirely to the taxman or to heirs who didn't earn it. Learn to harvest your gains. Use the wealth you build to create lasting memories, to ease the suffering of others, and to live fully. A bank account full of unspent millions is just a cold monument to wasted opportunity. And finally, regret number 7, not starting the compound interest of love and time soon enough. In finance, we constantly preach the magic of compound interest. Start early, we say, and let time do the heavy lifting. $1 saved today is worth tenfold tomorrow. But at the very end of life, staring at the ceiling of a hospital room, you realize that compound interest applies to absolutely everything, not just money. It applies to relationships, to memories, to your own character. If you delay investing in your marriage because you are too focused on climbing the corporate ladder or beating the market, you miss out on the compounding effect of a lifetime of shared experiences and deepening love. If you delay your passions until retirement, you may suddenly find that your body no longer has the strength to cash the checks your mind wants to write. The dying regret waiting. Waiting to live. Waiting to give. Waiting to love. They treated life like a volatile market they could perfectly time, thinking they could push all the joy and all the living into the distant future, into a magical retirement. But the future is promised to absolutely no one. My friend, the fire is dying down, and I am getting tired. But I want you to remember this one thing before you go. The stock market, the economy, the wealth you are trying so hard to build, it is all just a theater. It is a grand stage where we play out our deepest fears and our highest hopes. Do not let the theater become your entire world. Invest wisely, yes. Be prudent with your resources. But remember that your real portfolio is the lives you touch, the memories you build, and the peace you cultivate in your own heart. When your time comes, as mine is coming very soon, you won't ask your nurse to show you your bank statement one last time. You won't care what the S&P 500 did that day. You will simply ask to hold the hand of someone you love. Build your wealth, but do not let it build a wall around your soul. Go now. Turn off the screens. Hug your children. Walk out into the sun. The market will be there tomorrow. But your life, your beautiful, fragile life, is only happening today. Please do not make my mistakes. Live well. The breaking point came when I looked at my spreadsheet and realized that although my net worth was hitting record highs, my actual happiness was at an all-time low. I did the math on my time and realized that by consolidating these assets into more liquid, truly passive vehicles, I could reclaim 40 hours a week. I chose to trade the complexity of physical real estate for the simplicity of time. True wealth is not measured by how many doors you own, but by how many hours of your day you actually control. Do not be afraid to pivot your strategy when your lifestyle no longer aligns with your goals.